President Biden drew linkages between World War II and Russia's war on Ukraine in his D-Day address today. The president said that surrendering to bullies is, quote, simply unthinkable.
We will not walk away. Because if we do, Ukraine will be subjugated, and it will not end there. Ukraine's neighbors will be threatened. All of Europe will be threatened. And make no mistake, the autocrats of the world are watching closely to see what happens in Ukraine, to see if we let this illegal aggression go unchecked.
Joining me now, Margaret Brennan. She, of course, is CBS News' chief foreign affairs correspondent and the moderator of Face the Nation. Margaret, another episode in which the rhetoric is fulsome and aggressive, full of guarantees. Ukrainian President Zelensky was there listening to all of it. But as you well know, President Zelensky has often told the United States and the leaders of Europe, God, I love your rhetoric. I need more reality. Is there a gap or a shrinking gap between rhetoric and reality? Is Europe and the United States on the same page?
Well, one of the things that President Biden and his officials are most proud of, and they get credit for from even some of their critics, is to this point keeping the Western alliance largely unified, with the notable exception within NATO of Hungary. Oftentimes votes have to happen with Viktor Orban out of the room.
Right.
But when it comes to the basic premise, Europe was terrified by the fact that Russia was so blatant in attacking European capital, not just nibbling away at the edges like they had started to do back in 2014. When that invasion happened, it changed everything in Europe. But there still are differences of opinion here. French President Emmanuel Macron gave an interview to French TV today saying tomorrow he will make some announcements about more training of troops. The question is, does that happen inside Ukraine or outside Ukraine, where it's currently happening? That's a point of difference and debate right now within the alliance. How quickly weapons are delivered. And French President Macron has said something far more forward-leaning than President Biden or the German Chancellor are comfortable with, and that is, don't take off the table at least the threat of sending troops to fight in Ukraine. So the allies aren't completely perceiving the threat in the same way. President Biden's really trying to manage this and has been criticized for perhaps being slow in making decisions he ultimately gets to, right? He could have made them earlier on in the process. So they're not completely on the same page, but they are directionally there. One thing that could be a factor to watch, we have the European parliamentary elections this week. There is a rise within the far right of many of these parties in Europe, and it's not clear how that's going to impact some of the decision-making.
Particularly in Germany
Europe.
and France, yes. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was on CBS Mornings echoing the comments of President Biden. Let's take a quick listen to that.
After 2 world wars, we wanted to do everything possible to make sure that there wouldn't be a third. And at the heart of that is an international order, an understanding that one country can't simply violate the territory of another by force, change its borders by force, seize its land, try to dominate its future. If we don't stand up for those rules in our time, then we risk seeing what happened in the time that we're commemorating today.
Your response?
Well, that's the international rules-based order, which sounds like you're back in a college classroom. But that's everything we take for granted, right? That's the UN. That's the International Court of Justice. That's the World Bank. That's the IMF. All the architecture that was created to prevent conflict. Here's the challenge right now. Is the other superpower on the rise, China, wants to change those rules in their favor. And that's a big tension right now. Their ally in this, Russia, the weaker of the two, is working with them to help. And vice versa. That's one of the perceived challenges for the United States. Secretary Blinken would be the first to say it is, China is helping to arm Russia in Ukraine. Iran is, North Korea is. You're seeing this sort of access develop to challenge Western allies and potentially rewrite those rules to say might does make right. And that could be an indicator of perhaps China's intentions with Taiwan. That's the thinking there. But in terms of how the United States pushes back on that, that's right now, someone like Mitch McConnell, who had that powerful op-ed in the New York Times today, was saying, don't just praise the fighting rightfully that took place back in World War II, but note it was the fumbling in to conflict that happened. These moments that precede conflict are consequential, and pointing back that we might be in one right now.
We might be in one right now. Margaret Brennan, thank you very much.